being the giant, massive guy he was, let's also backtrack a little bit. Ben Roberts-Smith won his Victoria Cross when the public support for Afghanistan was at an all-time low. And what did we do? We gave them Australia's super soldier. 6.5 feet tall. He grows every time we tell the story. Covered in tattoos. Giant jaw, well-dressed, well-spoken. His family heritage is brilliant. His father's former Supreme Court judge and his mother's father was a police commissioner. All these things, just brilliant poster boy guy. And I say that, and I will say this, having been in the Special Forces long enough and in Afghanistan and Iraq and the rest, there are hundreds of individuals we could have awarded Victoria Crosses to. That does not detract at all from the incredible valour that Ben showed to win his award. But everyone knows that. Speak with people like Dan Kieran, who won his Victoria Cross in the infantry. He was a Bushmaster driver with the Special Operations before he deployed with 6RR and won his Victoria Cross. And he'll be the first person to say that I saw so many missions just as Bushmasters where people could have won Victoria Crosses.
The courage of our soldiers, mate. Just in what you're describing.
We standardise excellence and we don't do it for the awards. But the issue is, Carl, when we went to Afghanistan for 20 years and when Kabul fell in 2021 and the public's left asking, was it worth it? That's demonstrative of how much we failed because we didn't take them on the journey. And all that we showed them was awards and accolades. So my guys in the Special Forces have gone away and done the most incredible things that our government isn't telling people that we did. And unless they received an award or an accolade, their services come down to whatever is currently published or stigmatised or shamed in the media.
Everything that I can do in my capacity will be driven towards telling these stories because I don't think there's anything more important.
It's phases and stages. It's in this world here and now. It's so easy to be lost in the moment and lost in the short term. My grandfather fought on the hook in Korea and then in Vietnam, and he died just after the ABC published that article. So I'm sad he never got to see my name and my guys clear. But he's the one who called me and said, just don't let them do to your lads what they did to mine after Vietnam. But he also said, just appreciate these things come in phases and stages. And it will take time. It took 50 years for the government to apologise to the Vietnam veterans. Our job, mine and yours, Carl, is to make sure that it doesn't take that long. Because in the meantime, we're losing more veterans to suicide. In the meantime, we're not recruiting people into the military. We're weakening our nation over what this is. But I want to go back to the Ben Roberts-Smith stuff. So Ben, the super soldier that he was, when SAS ran their selection course, his job was to be the intimidating bruiser on that course. His job was to go in there and intimidate people and beast them and get in their face. Do you know someone he did that to? Andrew Hastie. He beasted Andrew Hastie on his course, and there was an interesting incident in one of the role player scenarios on Andrew Hastie's course where he refused to go against his values and steal something from a village. It's renowned within Special Forces folklore. And anyway, at the end of each phase, there's a selection board, and instructors, and particularly in the SAS, the weight of their patrol commanders and their non-commissioned officers' recommendations in selecting candidates, including officers, carries extremely heavy weight. And Ben recommended that Andrew Hastie to fail. And ever since that day, and SAS was going through a unique time where they were struggling to recruit a lot of officers. You've seen Andrew Hastie. He's a very well-presented, well-spoken, highly intelligent individual. Having him in an SASR beret, be it in a Special Operations Liaison Officer role or a Troop Commander role that could be mentored, was a risk they were willing to take, regardless of the recommendations. And there was a blood feud formed between those two gentlemen from that selection course. And what I've been privy to see throughout this Nick Mackenzie, Chris Masters ordeal is the close-knit friendship that has constantly been between Andrew Hastie, Nick Mackenzie, Chris Masters. People catching Andrew Hastie, having dinner with Nick Mackenzie, well before these trials and all the rest. You'll find people like me speaking out about the presumption of innocence and due process, and you'll have Andrew Hastie getting on the ABC after Ben's defamation case loss, saying how great this is for the courage of those SAS people who are speaking out. There are tribes, there are individuals, and there are motives, and there are always more than my side of the story. There's many sides to this. That's why the simple cry that I've been screaming at the top of my lungs from the start of this is push through that and take it to a criminal court where evidence has to be beyond reasonable doubt and it's a jury's decision. Because at the moment, it's political influence, it's on the balance of probabilities, it's the media storm that we're seeing that's having so much more of a negative impact on everything.
All those aforementioned people, I'll let them answer.
Please do.
For themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're all big boys.
Yeah.
And they're playing a big game.
And they know where to find me. And they was completely silent at the end of my ABC case. And they've been completely silent during some pretty critical parts in our recent veteran history. So please do.
How did you view the Brereton report? I mean, you were also investigated. You had to give evidence
twice. Yeah.
Pretty difficult for you.
Yeah, and as I've written about it, mate, my first interview with Brereton was really interesting. Brereton and his team in a Defence Plaza here in Sydney. And, it started off with just going through some pretty trivial stuff, confirming the mood was, we really need your help to understand all these things. And I was answering some very basic questions, stuff like the difference between infantry tactics and special forces tactics, stuff that I didn't think I'd have to explain to, such an eminent organisation that was set up. And then I was taken on a journey where I was shown footage of me jumping off a helicopter and firing a warning shot at an insurgent that was running away, and then sending my partner force forward to capture them, and questioned if I was allowed to fire warning shots because under Australian law, we're not. Under US engagement, they are. We developed an understanding that, if you shot near someone, they would usually stop and you could capture them, as opposed to I was literally authorised to kill that person.
Just to add to the complexities that you're facing over there.
Fabulous, yeah. And just next thing I was told by Justice Brereton that my decision as the commander to authorise my guys to fire warning shots had opened every single one of them up to being prosecuted. And for me, this was in 2016, 2018. That broke me, because at this time the Brereton report had been going on, and we literally had some soldiers go into the Brereton report and then take their own lives afterwards. It was causing massive issues, and I got to see why through the way in which it was conducted. And I literally broke down in that room. You can imagine me breaking down, hysterically crying in front of a panel of 4 senior officers is not something I'm proud of, not something I ever think would happen. I asked 3 times to leave the room, was denied the ability to leave that room, and then about 10 minutes later they finally let me leave, go to the bathroom, and I just remember looking in the mirror and seeing my face red, my eyes puffy, and I was just embarrassed. I went back in that room, and then they showed me footage of what then became the infamous adding of 6 gunshots footage by the ABC of shooting out of the window, the actual 6 shots shooting at an insurgent. And I was in such a state that I said that was me shooting, because again, I was trying to remember these things. I vividly remember it in that footage. But it wasn't me. And the next time I went in for the second questioning with General Brereton, I said to him, hey, look, I actually have gone home, looked at the footage and remembered that's not me. And his response was, that's fine, we've got bigger fish to fry. The issue for me is my testimony to General Brereton in that closed first interview got to Joshua Robertson and Mark Willisey at the ABC in the edition that said it was me. And I know this because Joshua Robertson called a commando buddy of mine, and told him that they had this testimony and asked if he had any dirt on me or be willing to go against me on a few things. And that guy instead picked up the phone and called me.
It's a terrible state of affairs.
And General Brereton is now the head of ICAC. And I have publicly made these statements, and there's been no investigation into how any of that came out. And every single one of those interviews we conducted with Brereton were recorded. So those records are somewhere. But no one in this current government or the Morrison government has been willing to take action to actually even just provide these tapes.
Okay, so a couple of things to add to all that. And we're not apportioning blame directly to Brereton.
I just want... how can any of us have any trust in a process where we've been a part of it processes are meant to be, of the highest order and about integrity and all the rest, when there's already been proven to have these leaks in relationships with the media? What stock do we put in this? And what stock do we put in the systems and processes in Australia when that same person's the head of ICAC?
I wanted to ask you this too.
Yeah.
How does it transpire that there are soldiers out there who are still under investigation, who are still having, this process ongoing? The psychological torment of that must be horrendous, and still know